Welcome back again. If you haven't seen it, I have updated the XPL Pro library and also the plugin. The new version is on the Patreon page, also on the Discord server. I'd highly recommend you grab a copy of that and update it. It fixes a couple little things. I want to get back to this build. I know I got a little distracted with other things, but we're nearly done with it. All we need to do is hook up LEDs. I'm going to show you two different ways that you can accomplish this. And the first one will just be the traditional method of hooking up LEDs to the Arduino. I've got these three green ones. There's one for the flight director on, auto throttle on, and then flight director on the co-pilot side. They're just normal green LEDs in there. I'm going to hook those up. I'm going to hook them up through 220 ohm resistors to limit the current to them. And this should be pretty simple. These are just going to go on my plain board here, and then wires to some pins on the Arduino, and then we'll be done. Let's make it happen. I'm going to disconnect this while I'm soldering. My three resistors are now on board. The diodes that you see here were from an experiment with the rotary encoders trying to multiplex the interrupt, and I was having trouble with that, so I didn't end up going with that, so you can just ignore these components on here. In another video, I ended up just wiring those direct to the Arduino board, and they were working fine. So with this configuration with the LEDs, we need the Arduino board will be sending a 5-volt power to the LEDs individually, so we're going to need to put a common ground on those. Remember that LEDs are polarity sensitive. I can see that mine have a shorter pin and a longer pin. The ground should go to the shorter pin, so let's get that done. I'm going to put a little heat shrink around the lines just to keep the everything from touching each other. I've been using white wire for my ground planes. I might be out of white wire. We'll go with black wire on this one. It's just harder to see on the camera. So I only have 3 of these to hook up. It should only take me a minute. What do you care? I'm going to make a time lapse anyway. So the 3 ground wires are now hooked up. I now just need to hook up wires to where I put the resistors, and then wires from the other side of the resistor to the Arduino pins that I want to use for the LEDs. I'll use light blue wire. I think I'm going to use pins 24, 25, and 26. And I'll go left to right along the panel. Alright, we have our LEDs hooked up. If this is looking like a confusing mess to you, you're not alone. I'm sure that with a little care you can do a much neater job of this. Ideally, there should be a printed circuit board somewhere. Somebody make one. That's all I've done. I've hooked up my 3 LEDs. All we need to do now is code. So I've got it plugged in and programmed. Here's what it looks like when it's working. The lights are tracking just fine. The co-pilot's one won't go on. I think I have to disconnect the autopilot. Let's see what happens here. There we go. That one goes on. The other one goes off. Auto throttle light is still on. So this is functioning properly. My only complaint with this setup is that those green LEDs are kind of obnoxiously bright. You could use a different resistor in there. I used a 220 ohm resistor, maybe a 500 or 1000, something like that. You could experiment around with it. I plan to disconnect those from the direct wire and use a multiplexer. I bought this one from Adafruit. It has 24 channels on it. The reason I want to do this, it can control 24 LEDs, and it will do so with a pulse width signal, so we can make them brighter and dimmer automatically and individually. These boards are chainable, so you could get 10 of them and link them together. As long as you put an appropriate power supply on there, you can power essentially as many LEDs as you want with, I think, 3 pins to control the chain of boards. So I think I'm going to go with that plan. You can wire these however you want. There's other options as far as multiplexing, or just wire them direct to the board with whatever resistors you want. Just make sure you put a resistor in there. For the direct wiring that I did on this example, let me walk you through the code and show you what changes I added to make that happen. This is my code for the XPL Pro 737 Master Control Panel so far. I'll upload this version to the Patreon page so you can look at it there. It'll also be sent to the Discord page. The only thing that I've added for these LEDs are 3 definitions of pins. I've put the LEDs on pins 24, 25, and 26. I added 3 data ref handles for the auto throttle status, the flight director captain status, the flight director first officer status. I've also gone in and changed this. Instead of calling them integers, I called them specifically dref handle, which actually just maps to an integer anyway. So it won't affect if you're doing it the other way. I just thought that maybe this would make the coding a little bit more clear on what purpose the different variables serve. You can see I did one also for command handle. This is the setup loop in which I have defined the pins as output pins on the 3 pins that drive the LEDs. Nothing has changed there. On the inbound handler, there are 3 lines here that detect if the handle is the data ref for each LED that we want to light up. It goes ahead and just writes the inbound data that we get. I don't know why model defines these as floats, because they're only on or off, but it is what it is. So we just send the data from the float. The compiler will map that to an integer for you, and then turn on the lights or turn off the lights as appropriate. The only thing else in here is the definition of the data refs. They're right here. These are the 3 data refs for those LEDs. We're requesting updates to them as usual, and I'm just asking for no more than every 100 milliseconds, and there's no need to scale this or reduce its precision, since they're only on or off. These are the data refs that I copied in from the XPL Direct version of this, so that I have them handy for when I start registering those into the Adafruit multiplexer. In the next video for the 737 Master Control Panel, I'll be wiring all of the LEDs from the panel into that multiplexer. Have an awesome day. I'll see you in the next video.